Hey, this is Jim McDonald. Welcome to episode 218 of the PowerCast. This is a bonus episode this week. Mark and I wanted to have the chance to talk about the passings of Dallas McCarver and Rich Piana. We're going to talk about the Mayweather and McGregor fight and a few other things. And really, the theme came down to having goals and trying to reach those goals means that there'll be a cost along the way. You will pay for those goals in some way, in terms of your time, in terms of giving up other activities that you would have rather done, and that in really extreme goals can have really extreme costs. And a lot of what we see in the health and fitness industry doesn't have all that much to do with health. So anyway, those are things we were thinking about. The first portion of the show, up to about the 40-minute point, we actually talk about positive lifestyle changes and the fact that even those have a cost in terms of other things that you might want to be doing instead. And after that, we talk about the Rich Piana and Dallas McCarver unfortunate deaths. And then at the end, near the end, we talk about some changes that are coming to the show. And I'm going to actually come back after the end of the show to maybe recap and clarify that section just a little bit, because I think we left it a little bit more ambiguous than I had actually intended. Also, everybody is aware that there's severe weather problems in Texas and Louisiana right now. And without encouraging you to donate to a specific charity, I'm going to say choose a charity that you're comfortable with or a way to make a difference. And try to do that. We have a lot of listeners in Texas, and we want to let them know that we support them, and we hope everyone there is safe. So check that out. We'll be back on Wednesday with another episode, and I'll be back at the end of this to talk a little bit more about what's coming up.
Support for this episode of the PowerCast comes from our newest sponsor, Precision Nutrition, home of the world's top nutrition coaches. Check out the free course for our listeners at get.pn/PowerCast. That's get.pn/PowerCast. Reebok, home of the legacy lifter at Reebok.com. 8-Man Apparel for people who lift heavy weights at 8manstrong.com. Compex Muscle Stim products at CompexUSA.com. Use the code PowerCast and get an additional 28% discount. HowMuchYouBench.net, home of Mark Bell's Slingshot. Use the code PowerCast and get 15% off slingshots and free shipping on orders of $100 or more. And Bodybuilding.com, the world's largest fitness website and supplement store. Bodybuilding.com has free plans for every level. Visit Bodybuilding.com today to become your best self.
Recorded live in West Sacramento, California, this is Mark Bell's PowerCast. Standing just to the left of Jim McDonald, here's your host, Mark Bell.
Do you know or have you been exposed to the science behind the 10-minute walk?
I know that like originally that's kind of where Stan got some of it from. Is that basically the 10-minute walk it's just they did a study basically showing like walking frequently had a greater impact than just going for like a 30-minute walk.
Right. Yeah.
So,
another thing.
All of it, if you really break it down, everything always makes sense when you break it down to like where we came from, sort of, so we probably moved a lot when we had like predators and shit.
Yeah.
And we probably nighttime, cavemen or whatever you want to fucking call them, we probably used some form of like almost intermittent fasting, just because because you couldn't set up shop in the middle of the day. And so you probably went most of the day without eating food, probably found food, probably got to a spot that you could relax and eat. And when you ate, you probably went to bed. And that was it. And then the next day, you do the same thing. You probably moved frequently throughout the day, but we just don't move nearly as much. So it kind of makes sense that moving multiple times could have a greater impact. And what I like about promoting the 10-minute walk and why I've been talking about it so much is like, I think most people can just kind of say, I can do that. 10 minutes?
Yeah.
That ain't bad.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned just using a glucometer lately, just to kind of see what was going on with
What's
my
a
own.
glucometer?
It's a meter for measuring your blood glucose.
Is it like on an app, or you got to bleed, or what is it?
You got to bleed.
So you prick your finger.
You prick your finger, and
Is that the ketone thing is different. It's
the
reading
ketone thing you pee on.
Well, that's the
right.
Right. Well, there's also the one you bleed, but that's probably measuring ketones, I guess.
Maybe I don't know. I'm not.
What does your blood thing read like when you?
It gives you a number. You're looking for a number.
It's like millimoles or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't
It's
exactly.
like MM or something.
Yeah. It's probably.
Is it measuring just like your blood glucose, basically?
Yeah, it's the glucose content of your blood at that moment. And
I remember Dan Duchesne talked a lot about that in his book Body Opus, which is one of the things that really got me into ketogenic dieting. He talked about a glucometer all the time.
Yeah,
and the keto sticks and stuff.
If you test your, I mean, it's a very simple thing. You just
doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't really hurt.
It's not the most comfortable thing you ever did, but it doesn't hurt.
It doesn't really hurt. You prick the side of your finger usually because, especially as lifters, most of us have a lot of callus on our.
Can't really get much traction.
Yeah, and you have to have enough blood. The current ones don't really take very much, and you just basically you put the test strip that's stuck in. For me, it's stuck into the end of the meter. Mm-hmm. Just right up to that drop of blood, and it just sucks it in there, and then it gives you an immediate reading. Mine will actually then go by Bluetooth to my phone, so I can track it. Cool. But one of the things a couple of things that I learned. One of them is that if you're fasting for 12 hours or more, you will see your blood sugar start to rise. It's like, well, why would that be the case? Well, your liver is raising your blood sugar because you haven't eaten to keep you alert,
protecting you.
Yeah. The other is that if you exercise and then you check your blood glucose immediately after that, it will be higher. Mm-hmm. But if you give it a few minutes more, it will come down and it'll be 8 to 10 points lower than it was before you exercised.
Yeah.
So that 10-minute walk can have the effect of lowering your blood glucose.
Yeah.
A little bit, enough.
I guess you can almost look at it as that 10-minute walk is almost like a magical supplement.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden
right.
Allows you to handle blood sugar a little bit better.
Yeah, it juices your system and reduces your insulin insensitivity.
Right. The other thing that it does, it can help lower blood pressure. It can help with digestion.
Yeah.
It can help with your cholesterol levels. It can help with all different kinds of things. And even though it's just walking, as you get used to your walks, you can start to turn them into a little bit more of a brisk walk where you're picking up the pace a little bit. But what I really love about it is in the morning, a lot of times, I mean, forget about my penis for a second here, everybody. I know it's not easy. But I wake up extremely stiff. And so when I wake up like that, I can go in the shower. I have a hot tub.
Right.
I could go in either one of those things, and I could feel a little bit better. But just waking up and just getting a walk in, there's actually been a lot of science, shows all kinds of benefits, but literally just provides some lubrication for your spine, your spinal cord, and just gets you kind of ready for the day. Those of you guys that really like to lift heavy early in the morning, there's been more and more research on just why that's a really terrible idea. It's not that you can't lift early in the morning. It's just that you need to make sure your body's ready, and you probably need to just, if you're going to work out at 7 a.m., you probably are better off waking up at 5 than you are waking up 20 minutes before, rolling out of bed, hitting the gym.
Giving yourself more time between when you wake up and
temperature. You got to get that body temperature up, and it's lifting weights is always going to be dangerous anyway.
Right.
But you always want to give yourself the best shot. You always want to give yourself the best chance. But those walks they're easy. For those of you that are in a relationship, you have a husband, wife, you have a girlfriend, or you have kids or a friend or what. I mean, you could grab other people and go on these walks. And I mean, I haven't had one person bitch about it one time. I mean, my kids, they're 9 and 13. They're totally not interested. A walk's not fun, it's, but neither one of them ever said no. Like they're like, sure.
Yeah.
And then they just go with me, and sometimes we talk the whole time. Other times it's a little bit more quiet. Kind of just depends on the day. But I've done the 10-minute walk with my dad. I've done a 10-minute walk with employees from Slingshot. I've done the 10-minute walk with my brother. Just my wife, and everyone's like. And then when we get done, they're always like, "Oh, I actually felt pretty good."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, why aren't we all doing it more?
Do you leave your phone at home, or do you leave it off, or do you listen to something, or do you?
Yeah. So there's something with whatever the way that my brain is wired, where reading a book can be really difficult. And I've been trying to work on it lately because I kind of said to myself, I preach a lot of different shit to people, but I'm not actually doing some of the stuff that I preach sometimes. So I need to fucking check myself.
Yeah. So, sometimes things that are a really good idea are things that you haven't had a chance to really implement in your own life. But it's like, why hold it back from people if it's going to help them? But at the same time.
Right. I mean, I've told people in the past, let's say I'm troubleshooting with somebody and they really want to lose some weight. And I say, oh, you ever try like a low carb diet? And they're like, yeah, I tried it. Right. And then you're like, no. Did you really give it a good try? Because sometimes, let's be honest, we kind of halfway try stuff and we want it to not work. And then we're like, see, I told you that didn't work very well for me, right?
We sabotaged it going in.
And different diets work for different people. So we all understand how a lot of that works. But with the reading thing, I always just say I kind of suck at reading. And I'm like, well, yeah, I don't ever read. Mm-hmm. So of course I fucking suck at reading. My squats suck. Well, of course your squats suck. You don't ever squat. Mm-hmm. You've been doing leg press, or you haven't been training, or whatever it is. I mean, we can't expect ourselves to be good at anything that we don't practice enough. And so, but anyway, when I do read, it's a little difficult for me to retain the information, and I have to read stuff kind of multiple times. But that is the best way for me to retain the information. So while it takes a long time and it's tedious, that's a great way for me to gather information. And I figured out another way, I guess you would call it, after visiting Dave Asprey. I guess you'd call it a quote unquote hack. For me, a quicker way is to go on a walk and to have an empty stomach, maybe some coffee or something like that before I go on my walk. So I'm going to take coffee with me, and I'll listen to an audiobook. Mm-hmm. But if I sit down and listen to an audiobook, if I do anything else and listen to an audiobook, it's going to be really hard for me to retain that information because I can't really. I mean, they've shown that multitasking is almost like a myth. It's very hard to really multitask. Yeah. We did talk about in the podcast how music can sometimes be a nice background, right. But kind of other than that, it's really hard to get two things going at once and have a good retention with any of it. So when I go on a walk, if I can listen to an audiobook, that helps a lot. A lot of times I'll listen to Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan, podcast, music. It just kind of depends on the day, but I get a lot out of it. So my 10-minute walk, the only thing is what I would advise against is, do your best to not be dicking around with your phone because it's going to slow down the pace of your walk too much. So in the beginning of the walk, I'm like, okay, I can find something, click on it, stick to it. Don't be fucking around with it and searching from some secret song or whatever. Just stick to that. Make the commitment to it. It's only a 10-minute walk. Get the shit done. Get it over with. How about for yourself?
I actually been reading this book by Brian McKenzie and Dr. Andy Galpin, Unplugged, lately, and
BMAC?
BMAC, yes, and I got
everything always comes back to BMAC.
Everything always comes back to BMAC and
he used to do those fucking
the Kelly Starrett circle,
crazy runs and shit.
Yeah,
ultra
marathons. Yeah,
his feet. Remember, I think he told me his toenails would fall off. And shit
yeah. I think there are pictures of his feet in the book.
Disgusting.
But one of the things, it's really about how people have become reliant on this thing I have on my wrist right now, Fitbit. Fitness technology, and they put too much into that, and just technology, period. And they're suggesting, like, if you're going to take a walk,
I think we're all guilty of putting too much into a lot of different things. I'd agree with that.
If you're going to take a walk in nature, like, we live in neighborhoods, we're not really in nature so much, but if I were to walk down to the river from my house, basically they said put the electronics away so you can actually experience what's going on around you, and you don't need that extra stimulation. There's plenty going on, right?
Right.
Normally what I do, though, is I normally listen to podcasts or music. I walk the dog in the morning, and then I usually, that's somewhere between 25 and 45, 50 minutes, something like that. And then usually later in the day, do some kind of cardio that may or may not be
20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that?
Yeah, maybe 20, 30 minutes.
Bike,
or
step mill.
If
your poison?
If I do 45, it's usually 30 on the bike and 20 or more on the treadmill. And then I've been trying to get into the concept too lately, and do intervals on that.
I gotta say this too. It's like, people will bastardize certain things, and just don't fall for it, man. Like, find something that you like doing and do it. Like, there's nothing wrong with an elliptical.
No.
I find it so goddamn funny and amusing that CrossFit has these shirts with the elliptical, and it's like crossed out. And it's like, oh, you're tough because you don't use an elliptical, but yet you use so many other exercise pieces. What's so special about your goddamn Concept 2 rower that makes it some great advantage over somebody? Look, they talk about CrossFit being scalable, right? Mm-hmm. And so scalable would be somebody who's in their 50s that has knee pain and back pain. They don't want to fucking do a rower.
Yeah.
The rower puts you in some compromising positions if you're not mobile enough. And if you don't know how to do it, like, you need a little bit of like advice on how to do the rower. You need zero advice to do the elliptical, which makes it a great piece for somebody just to jump on. So I just hate to see that sometimes. I get it. I get it. Like, it's a wimpy thing. Like, the recumbent bike is like the lazy man's like thing to do in the gym. But so what? You're burning calories. You're working your legs.
It's not the device itself. It's how you use it. And
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do a super slow, steady state, you better be doing it for a really long time. If you're not going to ever kick up the resistance or kick up the speed or anything like that, it's probably not going to do a whole lot for you. In the same way that if your walk never increases pace, then it will do things for you like we've talked about, but it's not going to have the same cardiovascular effect.
Right. And by the way, this stuff is always in addition to. So you can't tell them, oh, I walk my dogs. No. This is an addition. This is an add-on. Yeah. We're adding more shit. You don't get to, because your body's already used to that caloric expenditure already.
Yeah. Right.
Going back to what you said about some of the earth stuff, it's hard to dive into health and to dive into nutrition without getting into this weird zone where you're like this fucking meditating hippie that that is one with the earth, right? Like, sometimes it gets to be too weird. And what I noticed is we block out a lot of people out of our community. We block a lot of people out from coming in because we sometimes occasionally get too weird. We sometimes occasionally have things that are if I'm like, oh man, you know what I do in the morning? Like, I wake up at 5:30 and I take, I walk outside and I walk barefoot for a mile in the grass. It's like, cool. I get it, and the earth does have energy, and you got energy, and I understand it all. And there's a thing called earthing that could be beneficial. I understand it all, but we want to try to talk about things that are a little bit more manageable and things that you can actually do, things that you can actually accomplish. And so sometimes I think there'll be somebody like myself, somebody who's a quote-unquote fitness professional, and they'll throw something out there, and it's like, man, I can't do that. Like, I don't have time. This guy doesn't eat any carbs, and he does it. He trains for 5 hours every day. Like, I don't have time for that. I can't make a commitment to that. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tell people, I'm not asking you to be like me, and I'm not asking you to try to, like, I do spend a lot of time in the gym. Most people do not have that time.
Right.
Most people don't have the means or access to certain things that we do here with the podcast. Like we have access to, we could talk to any expert that we want.
Right.
Almost literally at any time.
Yeah.
That's fucking pretty cool. Like we're going to get to all of them at some point.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. Your average person doesn't have time to investigate and to research what a fucking ketone is and to whip out a glucometer. You know, like we have some of these privileges in doing what we're doing and being involved in this community. And so we're always trying to, you know, what I'm trying to always do is like, what can I talk to people about that's not going to just make them turn around? Like, what would if somebody was trying to teach me something, tennis, and they're like, hey man, you got to show up here 6 hours every day, like if you want to be worth a shit at all in tennis, I would be out the door. I'd be like, that fucking sucks. But if they're like, hey, you know what, you're gonna hit 100 balls every day and we're just gonna work on this one thing, you're just gonna fucking flick your wrist and stand like that, and that's gonna be it. Then you go home and you come back and we're gonna work on it, maybe not every day even, like maybe we're just gonna do it half hour 3 times a week. Then it's like, oh, you just planted a seed in my head that it can actually grow, and I can actually come back, and I can accomplish what we talked about. I'm whacking these balls, right? And I can keep coming back, and I can continue to work on it. And you can say, okay, now we're working on step number 2.
You know, back in the day when both of us were on, bulletin boards systems online for nutrition and workouts and all those stuff. And I remember how obsessed people would become with the minutia of whatever diet they were doing or whatever workout they were doing. And that stuff still exists. I recently came to have insight into a community that is doing the same kind of stuff, that same level of obsession, and that really concerns me because it doesn't match up well with people's normal lives.
The answer, as we've seen so many times, always lies in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, so if I'm sitting here yelling about a ketogenic style diet, and you're sitting over there talking about, figuring out a way to reduce some calories, can't we like meet each other halfway and say, you know what? Some sort of reduction in food sounds like a great idea. People are overeating all the time. They'll overeat and then they'll eat again. Like, so they'll overeat. They ate way too much, like in terms of how much their stomach can actually handle. They've filled themselves up too much. They'll go somewhere to eat. Then they come home. They have ice cream in their freezer, and 20, 30 minutes later, they're eating that. They're not giving themselves much time to digest the food, and they're like going to bed. And there's these things that people are doing all the time, where they're definitely consuming too much food. But like, can't you and I just say that's a problem? Like, yeah, clearly, right? Like, that's a problem. Okay, what else is a problem? Are people consuming way too many vegetables and too much fruit? I don't view that as an issue.
No.
Like, you start to break it down, fat. People are eating too much fat. People are eating too much sugar. And the reason why that happens is because a lot of our really good tasting food, and when I say sugar, I guess I'd lump carbs in there too.
Yeah.
Because we got like pizza and stuff too, right? That doesn't really have quote unquote sugar necessarily. It's very easy to eat way too much pizza, especially if you're hungry. And it's very easy to, like, if you don't care, then you don't care. And you're like, all right, I had 3 slices of pizza, and you have ice cream or shake or just something, something else bad with it, right? And these things, they really pile up on each other. But rather than me throwing stones, over my ketogenic fence, fucking nailing people with fucking ketones and fat bombs and MCT oil and shit, why can't I just say, hey, you know what would be a good idea is that we all embrace the fact that we're too fat. We all embrace a fact that the country is too fat, and that we're living in this land of confusion where I can't tell if a fucking egg is healthy or if it's not. I can't agree with anybody or disagree with anybody on really much of anything because I don't fucking know.
Yeah, right.
Because it's just gotten to be out of control. I can't even... figure out what makes sense anymore. But I'll say this is that I know without, there's absolutely no doubt that we are addicted to foods, and there's some trigger foods that can lead you down a really rough path. So I think that if we can all agree that we're overeating, and we can all agree that many people aren't getting enough sleep, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that aren't getting enough sleep. There's a lot of people that are going to bed too late. The overeating and becoming overweight is disrupting the sleep. The overuse of coffee, which I have right here.
I recently discovered I can't do energy drinks at all anymore because
I don't drink them.
Yeah, I can't do them anymore. I'm sorry, Monster. I can't. They end up having a negative effect ultimately.
You start to just look at it and it's extra junk you don't need. Look, appetizers. Make a decision. Are you going to eat a couple appetizers or are you going to have dinner?
Right.
Don't do both. I mean, if it's a special occasion and you want to go for it, then occasionally yes. But you don't. What you'll find out. I'm not trying to be a pussy about it. I know people are like, yeah, why aren't you eating more food? And they like the powerlifting side of things where we get after it and we fucking pig out. I get it, but at the same time, make a choice. And there's take some pride. Take some pride when you go to a restaurant and they serve bread. Tell the person that put the bread on the table, say, no, thank you. I don't want any bread at this table. And then just sit there and look at all the other fat fucks stuffing their face with bread. Yeah. And enjoy yourself and take a lot of pride in yourself. Take a lot of pride in the fact that, like, I don't need to be like that guy. Like I've done that a bunch and I've recognized it as a mistake and I shouldn't be doing that anymore. So I'm going to sit here and watch everybody else in here get fatter and get dumber, and I'm going to get smarter and I'm going to get in better shape.
One of the things I've noticed recently, because I started tracking again, is that the databases of MyFitnessPal, My Macros Plus, anywhere else you would want to look, where you're going to in a tracking app where they have a database that's been basically crowdsourced. People put in their own stuff,
right,
based on the information that's in front of them.
Gotcha.
So much packaged food, just an crazy amount of packaged food, not necessarily healthy stuff either, just packaged food because it has a label and they're so worried about their calories or their macros that they're eating a packaged thing instead of making food because they can track it easier.
Right.
And that I find that like offensive. It's scary, and it causes people to twist their diets around to try to match these kind of arbitrary numbers.
Offensive and ineffective in a lot of ways. I'm going to get to my brother and I are going to get to the bottom of a lot of this. He and I are working on a film together, and we're going to research a lot of these things. But it's my understanding the food labels have like a 20% error either way.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
And also, too, like, is everybody paying for their food to actually be tested? Or is it some conglomeration of, or collaboration, I should say, I think I just made up a word, some collaboration of ingredients that you're kind of agreeing that, yeah, it probably has that many calories in it. It's probably really a guess. And that's always been, I don't have a problem with the caloric thing. Where I do have a problem is just worrying about it too much. And same with ketosis.
Yeah. I know you're not a big tracker, so that's the reason I mentioned is that you probably haven't encountered it before, but I'm just stunned by it.
No, I've actually heard that before, even by people that do a ketogenic diet. They're like, oh, I just want some stuff that's packaged because then I can keep counting my calories. Either like X has 300 calories in it, this has 500.
The joke about Chipotle is that flexible dieters all eat at Chipotle because you can see what you're supposedly getting.
Yeah, and you know what? Like I can't imagine a diet where a large percentage of your food is coming from a place like Chipotle. It doesn't make sense to me. I can't. I understand how it can work, and I understand how you could potentially lose weight doing that, but you could potentially lose weight by going to McDonald's every day if you
or Subway like Jared.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. That's a great example.
I'm not saying that eating Subway made Jared a pedophile. I'm just saying that Jared ate Subway and he's a pedophile.
He's eating those footlongs, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's hard for anybody to agree upon anything. I think that we should also be careful that we don't demonize stuff that goes through a process, because everything's a fucking process. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a fucking grizzly bear. I don't grab a salmon out of a goddamn river and eat it. I prepare it. Like I'm either gonna cook it or I'm gonna get like sushi grade salmon.
Yeah.
Meats and different things are gonna be like cured or salted or marinated or there's gonna be something going on with it, and people get all bent out of shape about processed foods, and I do agree, because like sometimes it gets, you end up with something like a Dorito, which you can't even tell where the fuck that ever even came from or started, right? And a lot of fried foods and some of these things, we can start to kind of say, okay, well, let's hold off on it. A lot of the things that are accepted though in these different communities are not a great idea. I'm diving a little bit deeper into the ketogenic stuff right now as sort of an experiment. I have my ideas of where I should be and what I should be doing kind of exactly to get the best results in terms of making my body leaner and making my body healthier. And then I have some other ideas where I'm like, let me go as deep into this as I can, and let me eat the amount of fats that they say you should eat to really experience true ketogenic diet. But there's a part of me that doesn't feel like that makes any sense, because it's such a stretch sometimes to eat such large amounts of fat. I'm experimenting. I'm trying it out. Like I've made egg yolk omelets and things like that, and doing some different things where you're like, fuck man, you just ate 60 grams of fat. It's like, holy shit.
That's a lot.
It's a lot and probably unnecessary, but I'm studying it. I'm trying to learn about it a little bit more. But really, in the end, what I think is the answer lies in the middle. That if you can figure out a comfortable amount of food to eat to get you from one meal to the next, that's probably a good idea. And to limit your snacks. Go to bed on time, drink enough water. A little bit of intermittent fasting isn't going to kill anybody.
Definitely
the
not.
10-minute walk. I mean, look, I just mentioned 4 things right there, or 3 or 4 things right there that have absolutely nothing to do with the actual food that you consume. I didn't say one thing about you not eating carbs. I didn't say one thing about you reducing your fat calories. I didn't say one thing about any of that. You're supposed to drink, and this is in general, 67%, 0.67 times your body weight in ounces of water per day. That's just a recommendation that I found worked really well. And Seema and suggested it to me, and I think Stan, like on the same day. Weird, but they both suggested that to me, and it worked well. And then again, I think a lot of people they're not. You hear all these entrepreneurs right now, they get all excited and they're like, I wake up at 5 a.m. Whatever. It doesn't really matter when you wake up. What it matters is how productive you are while you're awake. If you wake up at 5 but went to bed at 11 and you don't function very well that way, that's not smart. And it's not healthy. It's very unhealthy, actually.
And I don't think it's sustainable for a lot of people for a long period of time.
That's what we're talking about, right? It's just being able to sustain. I do think, though, that most people should try to practice getting to bed when they want to go to bed, so they can wake up at whatever appropriate time they deem is good for them. I would say I do think that there is something to waking up between the hours of 5 and 7 personally. But that's how I operate, and that's where I feel good. So I will go to bed at an appropriate time that matches that. There's other things you can do. Put your phone away when you go to bed. Make your room dark. Have your room be cool as you can figure out how to make it.
Yeah, I know that Matt Vincent's talked about the Tourette's having a chili pad.
Oh yeah,
they're about $1,000,
right.
But if you actually slept tremendously better by having your body temperature
Yeah.
controlled while you were sleeping. Like, not everybody's going to be able to afford that,
Right.
but the reality is that we could if we wanted to. And
Yeah.
if it helps, then what would be the downside, right?
Well, maybe there's another option too. Maybe like there's a product called the freeze sleeve, which is just I've run into the guy at
Right,
some trade
yeah.
shows and stuff before. You can throw it on your elbows, you can throw it on your knees, and it could be it's almost like a neoprene type pad.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as cold as a regular ice pack, and you can just probably put that behind your neck before you go to. I mean, keep you cooler. Like
Yeah.
you can find probably other options, or just take a shower. Something to reduce your, how hot you are,
and kind of make it a ritual. I know we're out of order, but because this episode will come out this week because of the next topics that we're going to discuss. But when I went in and had the DEXA scan a couple weeks ago, I had actually very good conversation with the guy in the lab, and he had a lot of suggestions. I played completely dumb. I didn't say, hey, I'm on a health and fitness podcast or any of that kind of stuff. I just let him talk to see what he had to say, because you're always interested to see what kind of information is going out there.
Dietary kind of recommendation.
Yeah, and because my issue, I think, is cortisol, because I accumulate fat in my gut. I probably have a hereditary tendency toward that. Certainly my dad, I'm built the same as he was and stuff. Yeah. But he was talking about having a bedtime ritual, having a morning ritual, that kind of stuff. And then in terms of cardio exercise, he was definitely advocating lifting weights, weight bearing exercise. Right. But he was saying a couple of HIIT sessions a week, a couple of steady states,
right?
1 or 2 steady states,
2 of both, right?
Right,
one or 2 of both, yeah.
And then every couple of weeks, take a long, couple hours hike of some kind. It's like, well, that makes perfect sense, and that fits in most people's
right,
wheelhouse. Some people,
right.
Some people are not going to be able to do that. They're going to have to come up with an alternative. But I thought that was all reasonable and kind of progressive in its own way. But the cool dark bedroom, and I have just kind of the opposite of that at home, especially the dark.
It gets warm.
Yeah, and it's there's way too many windows and skylights and stuff. It's like when we bought the house nearly 20 years ago now, I said we're never going to sleep right in this room because it's way too bright.
Yeah.
And even with the sleep mask.
Yeah, a lot of times you find when you go to a hotel, sometimes you can crank that AC up and you lay down and boom, you're done.
Yeah, and just die, and it's awesome.
Pitch black. It's so dark that you can't figure out how to get to the fucking bathroom.
Right.
And you stub your toe every time.
Right, yeah. Something else that I have noticed recently, and because I have a workout partner that can't make it out here, so we're in a commercial gym most of the time. And I was in there the other day, and I was walking around and thinking, God, there are just a lot of really jacked people in here,
right?
And I don't know how strong they are, because I'm not like surveying what their bench press is or their squat.
They probably
or
are pretty strong. If they're fit, they're probably pretty strong.
But
and pretty healthy too. Probably
pretty big, and they're drawing from a large population of people. Right. And when I, apologies to everybody at Super Training, but like when I walk through our gym here,
some chubsters.
We don't have people who we have a few, in Seamus, jacked. Yeah. There's a few guys that have
some muscle mass.
Yeah. It's like, but if everybody looked more like what I'm seeing, they would probably all be stronger. And as powerlifters, we do tend to abuse calories on purpose, but maybe that's not the right approach. Maybe being more jacked. I mean, like looking at Boss of Bosses this weekend. Yeah. A lot of really jacked guys, not that many really overweight ones.
Yeah, true. I mean, I've always tried to hold a lot of muscle mass, the best I could. And occasionally I'd, go up in weight and I'd add body fat here and there and things like that too. But I've always tried to, there's things that I consciously think about, like right now, I'm about 240, 245, depending on the day. And I want to get down to about 235. I just want to kind of get a little lighter than I've been in a long time, just kind of see where it puts me. But as I'm doing that, I'm like, all right, well, if I'm going to shrink down, then I need to probably train my shoulders a little bit more. And like, I don't want to like, have that, I always call it the melted candle look, or look like you just like fucking just somebody lit you on fire and you melted into a pile of shit.
You're no shoulders anymore, and it all goes to your waist and like, your hips or your butt.
Let me train my arms and my shoulders so that I still look like I have some substance, even if I'm losing some weight. And, I think as powerlifters, a lot of times we think someone's small or someone's this or that. You look at Arnold Schwarzenegger in his heyday was, 230, 240. He wasn't 280. He wasn't 290.
Right.
He was never, he probably never weighed 300 pounds. But he was the hugest and best built bodybuilder pretty much of all time.
But I don't think he was ever carrying around a tremendous amount of extra fat either. I mean,
ever. Yeah, and even as he got older, I would say like, maybe his body fat percentage, creeped into the 20% range or something like that. But for most of his life, he was probably single digit.
Yeah.
For years and years. But again, kind of the point is like, there's things that are fairly easy for you to do. At least I think they're fairly easy for you to do. The 10-minute walk, I mean, I'll just give you, just two things alone. The 10-minute walk and some intermittent fasting. Once a week, do a 12-hour fast. 12 hours is cake.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Because you're going to
it's
have
sleeping
8 hours.
plus 4 hours.
Yeah, you're going to have 8 hours, and it basically just means that you're going to eat at, like noon or something? I mean, it's not bad, you know? So to try a 12-hour fast, try it once a week. Then, stick it to yourself, make it a little bit harder, and try somewhere between a 16 and 18-hour fast. Add in those 10-minute walks. Try to get in 4 or 5 a week. You can either add, a minute or two to some of those walks, or you can just add more. Like I probably do on a given week, I probably do like 8 or, on a good week, probably 12 of those 10-minute walks. And on other times, it might be less. You can also just have a goal to walk a certain amount. Let's say you want to walk an hour every week total. And then that way you can split it up whatever way you'd like it. It'll work out the math whatever way you want. But again, I didn't say anything about your calories. I guess I'd throw a third thing in there, and this would have to do with your actual eating, is don't overeat.
Yeah, don't drink your calories. That's a pretty easy one too.
Drinking your calories can be a mistake for sure. And I mean, how simple though? Like, a little bit similar to drinking alcohol. You go out with a buddy, you have a beer, you're like, oh, I felt pretty good. You have another one, and you're like, that's about where I want to be. How many more of those do you need to slug down before you start acting like an idiot, and it has a negative effect, a negative impact on you and your next day, Yeah. And then same thing with your food. Like if you're eating, like, don't be afraid to order the smaller steak. Like you're not going to die. Like I know that we're programmed to smash all this protein, but I think a lot of that information has been false. I don't think we need it nearly as much as we think. If you're still hungry and you go home, give yourself a little bit of time and eat a little bit more. But, you can even take, you can get a 12-ounce steak, fucking chop, eat half of it and eat the other half when you get home or something. But break it up a little bit.
Yeah, doggy bagging ain't gonna kill you. That's the thing about, the iPhone and a Fitbit or whatever. The Fitbit kind of explodes when you cross 10,000 steps in a day.
Gets all excited for you.
It's kind of my floor. Most of the time I hit it, like, and I've walked, I don't know, I've had it for like maybe 2.5 weeks, something like that. And I walked like over 70 miles in that period of time. And I'm tracking it, but I'm also not beholden to it. Right. It's just, I'm trying to keep a floor on activity. That's really the whole thing. We should take a short break right here for our friends at Precision Nutrition.
Speaking of nutrition, yeah.
Today's sponsor, Precision Nutrition, is the industry's most respected gold standard for both nutrition education and nutrition coaching. Over 50,000 health and fitness professionals have taken their certifications, and they've personally coached more than 50,000 clients who've collectively lost more than 1 million pounds. They're consultants to companies like Apple, Equinox, UFC, and Titleist. They've created something special for PowerCast listeners today. When you visit get.pn/PowerCast, you'll get access to an amazing free course exploring the science, or lack thereof, of nutrition's hottest topics, from grains to detoxes, from low carb to GMOs. It's all there. If you want to understand and learn how to navigate the latest trends and fads in nutrition, you can get the free course at get.pn/PowerCast. That's get.pn/PowerCast.
That's John Berardi from way back in the day.
Yeah, I love that guy back in the day. You know, he was controversial because he was bucking trends. He was saying opposite of what a lot of people said at that point.
I remember the main thing that I got from him was why just have one school of thought? Why not embrace different ones and see what fits you? Makes the most sense to me. I mean, the principle they had too of not consuming a lot of fats and carbohydrates together.
Yeah.
Because then you think about it, you're like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. That's all the things I love. That's pizza and ice cream and pancakes with syrup and butter on them and all that kind of stuff. That really adds up too quick and you can't control because it tastes too good.
Absolutely. So head on over to get.pn/PowerCast. Check out this free course and learn what's up with nutrition today so you can talk about it like a smart person. And we're back. We were going to talk today about some recent events in the fitness community, the loss of a couple of well-known bodybuilders.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, we're sitting here talking quite a bit about health, and, you guys know my stance, with anabolics and whatever you want to call them, performance-enhancing drugs, steroids. I mean, you guys have heard some of the different stuff from the film Bigger, Stronger, Faster, and you've heard me talk about it here on the podcast before. Once you have a tragedy like this hit, and then and it ends up being like a double tragedy because you got two guys go in the same week, and we also have C.T. Fletcher, who's on the fence as well, or not on the fence, but up against the ropes as well.
Yeah.
I guess needing a heart replacement. It's just, it makes you kind of wonder, and this has happened in professional wrestling, and they had to make a stance on what they were going to do about it, and since they took that stance, they've had a lot more success. The guys are a lot healthier. Some of the stuff that we mentioned, I actually went to WWE and preached with Kelly Starrett to a lot of the athletes. Right. John Cena was in the room along with a host of other WWE superstars, and this is stuff that I've been sharing with my audience that follows the YouTube stuff, the audience here at the PowerCast. It's all simple things that can help keep you healthy. The fact always remains is that we are all going to die. There's people that are going to die at certain ages, and that's the way it is. There's people that take risks, and they potentially are putting themselves in harm's way, and they may die earlier. But it's easy to sit there and kind of think to yourself, all these fucking guys are stupid because they're doing this or that. Well, there's a lot of professions that you could point the finger at and say that are dumb. There's a lot of doctors that aren't healthy because their job is stressful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of attorneys. There's a lot of people on Wall Street. We're all kind of rolling the dice. And the further we want to take it and the harder we want to work, the more pressure and the more strain and the more stress that puts on our lives. Even strength training, even coming in and wanting to bodybuild or wanting to CrossFit, or all these things put tremendous amounts of stress on our body, and they start out in a healthy place. And they end up being taken to an extreme because you start to learn, if I can't take something as far as I want to, then it's not good enough. And I got to be leaner, and I got to be stronger, and I got to be better, and I got to do this, I got to do that. Your desire to feel strong all of a sudden changed into what other people perceive to be strong, which are two way different things.
Right.
You know, if you told me that you bench 225 for 5 reps, I'd be like, fuck, dude, that's cool. That's pretty. You got got 245s on each side, and you're pushing it around. It's like it's more than your body weight, and you move it around multiple times. That's very strong.
Right.
If you don't think 100 pounds is strong, then go pick up a fucking 100-pound dumbbell.
Right.
It's heavy. And so our perception has got all warped because we're worried about how we're perceived in the eyes of other people. And that's when shit gets to be really dangerous.
I think if you look at both of these situations, that I think that both of those guys were driven by the perception of them and how people place them in their own minds and being afraid to ever break out of that.
Right.
I mean, Dallas McCarver is very, very young, and
I believe he's 26 years old.
26, and just tremendous potential in the
Professional
bodybuilding world.
bodybuilder, huge as fuck. I mean, that guy was big.
Yeah,
strong.
I never heard anybody say anything negative about him. I don't know. I'm not so well connected. He's not somebody that I knew, but you know, it was a shock. Actually, this last week's episode with Frank McGrath, I guess Frank was pretty good friends with him. You know, the world is really small.
Right.
The whole fitness, bodybuilding, CrossFit, powerlifting, weightlifting world, it's all pretty small.
Yeah, we all know each other. Yeah.
But you can imagine people having a particular place in their mind for a Dallas McCarver. You can definitely imagine people having a place in their mind for a Rich Piana. And was there ever a day when he said, I would rather not do what I'm doing now, but if I make a change, how's my audience going to react? And how will I continue to have the presence in the industry that I have?
Right.
Will I continue to have the impact that I have? What if I want to change to, you know, car racing or I want to weigh a normal amount, or, you know, I don't think it's easy for people to break out of those things once the expectations are there.
You had to all of a sudden change your identity in a lot of ways. So if either one of these guys, I guess, would use Rich Piana as more of an example. If he would say to himself, you know what, you know, I got some advice from my doctor, and things aren't looking great. I'm kicking all of it.
Yeah.
You know, tomorrow, and I'm going to make a change, and I'm going to try some different things. It would probably be hard because he just wouldn't look and wouldn't be the guy that a lot of people associated with, a lot of people liked, a lot of people hated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had a certain look to him, and that made him very popular. His YouTube channel and stuff was killing it. C.T. Fletcher came along, and C.T. Fletcher was crushing shit, and then Rich kind of picked up where he left off, and now we got guys like Bradley Martin that are crushing the game right now. But Rich Piana was extremely popular. He was extremely transparent. He told people about some of the stuff that he took. He had a lot of videos that were pretty funny and pretty over the top. Mm-hmm. He also had kind of blog style posts that just kind of showed his lifestyle and showed his cars and his house, and I don't know if it's a girlfriend or wife. Sorry about that. I don't know. But you know, showed some of his lifestyle and kind of give you a glimpse of who he was. But you know, he was transparent with the steroids and stuff that he used, but unfortunately, I think that he was involved in some other drugs. I don't really know. You know, I'm not.
Yeah, I haven't really heard that much about what happened with him.
I'm not close. I was never close to him. I was never close to his family or anybody at 5% or anything. But I did know him a little bit. We knew of each other and talked to each other in passing.
A couple of years ago, we had the booth next to them at the Arnold,
right?
And I don't think I ever talked to him when we were there, but the people who were working the booth were very, very nice to us, and we were not unknown to them. Let's say
everybody that works at that 5% booth looks like a fucking maniac.
Yeah,
tattooed head to toe, tattoos on their neck, piercings, and all this different stuff, and everybody's super nice. You know what they have at the 5% booth? They have couches. Because they invite people in to just sit down and kick it.
Right.
It's like, hey, come on in and just hang.
Right.
It's like, what? Really? I'm just going to hang out with you guys, just sit down on the couch. They're all very, well, most of them are very welcoming. I don't know all of them, but, and so yeah, it's just it just sucks to have lost these two guys, but unfortunately, I don't think we're going to really hear a lot of information on what exactly happened.
Yeah, you and I were listening to the 911 call.
Brutal.
Yeah. Really, really difficult. The Australian bodybuilder who was staying with him was talking to the 911 operator, and he did mention insulin,
right?
And that seems like a reasonable scenario. We know that bodybuilders use insulin. It's supposed to be the most anabolic substance on earth, and it's super easy to get because people who are actually diabetics need access to it. They need to be able to purchase it at basically any pharmacy.
Yeah, and the idea behind insulin is that you take a shot of insulin, and then you would eat carbohydrates with it. And that's supposed to shuttle into your muscles better,
less likely to become fat, supposedly.
Right, and it's supposed to be kind of the number one reason why, and I guess growth hormone maybe would be lumped in there as well, but insulin probably even more so. It's supposed to be the difference between the way Arnold was when he was bodybuilding, the way those guys look, Frank Zane, and those guys from back in the day, as opposed to the new look of people just kind of having muscle on top of muscle and just looking so thick and just so outrageous. So it's supposed to put tremendous amounts of muscle mass on you. And again, I know it's easy to sit back and just be like, oh, it's dumb because it kills you. Well, a lot of people are taking a lot of risks. People in cycling, people in MMA, people in all kinds of sports know that EPO, same result, it could fucking kill you where you stand.
Right.
It should be noted too that I've never seen any evidence that a steroid could kill you like that. I suppose anything's possible, but I've never really heard of somebody
It seems kind of unlikely because I think that it just won't bind to the receptors. Once the receptors are full, it's just going to pass through.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, as well as steroid,
especially immediately.
A steroid just the whole process takes a long time, and if it's doing things to you negatively, cardiovascularly and things like that, then again, it's going to be an accumulation. It's going to be something that happens over a period of time, rather than it being something happens right there on the spot. I think that you could take 20 cc's of testosterone, which would be like an entire big ass bottle of it. And I don't think it would harm you in any way, except for the shot itself would hurt. And you have to figure out where to distribute it throughout your body. But insulin and some other things, EPO and a few others, can actually kill you on the spot. Insulin, I think, can make you pass out, is my understanding, because your blood sugar dips too low. Is that right? Your blood sugar dips too low, and you're supposed to have carbohydrates with it. So I don't want to talk about stuff that I don't know about too much. I don't really know what happened to Dallas McCarver, and I'm not trying to upset anybody in any way. We're just speculating and talking about some of the stuff we heard. I also heard that he choked on food. Jim and I have this detective theory that we put into play, basically kind of thinking that he was probably trying to eat food. He was probably trying to eat something. I think they mentioned a bagel.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
He's trying to get some fast carbs in his system. Very typical of somebody that takes an insulin shot, and it just didn't work out. Who knows? Maybe he was kind of passing out, and then maybe he choked on the food. Whatever the case is and what I've heard, and this again is just rumor, and I'm not trying to spread rumor, but it's already out there, is that Rich Piana was addicted to some painkillers. I heard Oxycontin was in there, and I heard that he passed out and hit his head, and that's how he ended up in a coma. There's a possibility that I'm talking out my ass right now, so I apologize in advance if I am. Somebody can correct me if they have facts, if they have more information. But in my opinion, I'm no professional in this field, but I've been around drugs my entire life, having an older brother and having his friends and so on, and just running into a lot of people that have been addicted to a lot of different things. I've talked to Rich Piana before, and I've recognized that there was probably some sort of addiction going on. He was probably addicted to, a painkiller or something like that. Just the way that he and I, our interactions kind of led me to believe that, since I've dealt with it before.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's a possibility that I'm not correct, but I just remember Silent Mike and I talking to him, and I was kind of like, man, like that's, it just sucks. It's disappointing. I wish him well, and I wish that he wasn't, kind of going down that rabbit hole, going down that trap. And it's, but that's what happened. And, I kind of heard some rumor that he was like snorting Oxycontin or something crazy like that. Again, it's easy to sit here and point the finger and say, hey, look, that's dumb. Now, there's a couple different things going on here. Steroids are in some weird category by themselves, where they're not necessarily addicting the way that maybe like cocaine or heroin would be, or a painkiller even. But they certainly are addicting, because once you get that feel of success, and once you get on a roll and you get a good pump and you change your body, that's very addicting. So
psychologically addicting for sure.
Yeah, psychologically addicting. Yeah, 100%. Where the other drugs have been proven to be like physically addicting, right? So it just leaves us in a weird spot where it's like, how do we talk about this? How do we learn anything from it? I guess what we could do moving forward is just try to think of the things that the way that we want to live our lives, because these guys, one thing they did do is they did die prematurely, but they did live the life, or at least it appeared they lived the life that they wanted to live.
And both of them were inspirational to people.
Yeah.
Not everybody loved Rich Piana, but the fact is that a lot of people were inspired by him. A lot of people were just like, we're thinking about those lines at the Arnold, just how insanely long they were.
I didn't have a line like that.
No.
He was kicking my ass.
And I know that
McCarver is extremely popular as well.
Yeah, and supposedly a really nice guy. I know that we have crossover audience with Rich Piana's audience, because the first time that I was not in a booth that anybody pulled me aside and recognized me, talked to me, wanted to take a picture with me, was that couple years ago at the Arnold, and it was somebody in the line for Rich Piana.
Right.
Which just, I don't know. It's neither here nor there, but I know we have crossover audience. I guess what I would say is that steroids are kind of one sort of decision. It's a long-term thing. It doesn't have necessarily an immediate impact. It's probably not going to kill you right away, but there isn't a good reason for most people to take insulin.
Right.
And if anybody out there is thinking, well, Dallas McCarver was enormous, how to get enormous is to take insulin, just don't fucking do it.
Right.
Because it's too dangerous. The risk reward is not going to be there for you.
Dallas McCarver quite possibly could have held a similar amount of size without it. Kind of, deflecting into a different sport and talking about Bones Jones, who got popped again. And we're like, motherfucker, why did he get popped again? Well, it's because he thought that he needed that to be able to defeat Daniel Cormier and
somebody told me what it was, and they actually asked, Turinabol. It's a short acting testosterone.
Yeah, and it's like, Daniel Cormier is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
He's an outstanding fighter. But the tools and the different things that Bones Jones has, from a standpoint of genetics, the long limbs and just how fast and all these different things that he is in the ring, you're just like, fuck, man. I don't want to say he didn't need it, but like, he probably didn't need it. He probably would have been fine without it, although his body has changed a lot. He's in a lot better shape. I guess my point would be, with the physique that he had going into the event, he could probably obtain a similar physique without the usage of some of the stuff that he did. But again, it's a decision. Dallas McCarver thought, I need this to do that. And Bones Jones thought, I need this to do that. And these are decisions that for a lot of us, we make a decision to try a certain supplement to get a certain result, or we make a decision to do a certain thing to get a certain result, and it's not going to be as detrimental as it was for these two individuals. But again, just if you're going to do any profession, if there's going to be a lot of risk involved. We're all going to die. If you like to ski, there's a risk that you could get really hurt. Like you could potentially end up in a wheelchair the rest of your life,
or die.
Yeah, or die.
Sonny Bono hit a tree with his head and died. He
fucking died.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Not ski? No, that's not the answer. That's stupid. What do you do? Not train? Not take steroids?
Not drive your car? Not fly in an airplane? There's risk everywhere.
Yeah, there's going to be risk everywhere, and I know the steroid thing is a little bit different of a choice. But again, when you think about it in these terms, if I told you that you're diabetic and you can't ever, every time you have sugar, it's going to have a much more negative impact on your body than it would somebody else. Mm-hmm. Well, you'd be like, fuck, all right, and you try your best and you diet, you lose some weight. You're still going to eat sugar here and there. Mm-hmm. You already know it's not good. Look, we do stuff that we know is not good for us every single day. All these people that want to get on their natty soapboxes out there and talk about, how people are abusing themselves with drugs and different things. You guys are abusing yourselves too. Going to the gym, doing all these high volume squats when you know your back hurts, your back's jacked up, you shouldn't do it, that you should rest, you'd be better off not showing up to the gym that day. So why are you doing it? Why is somebody injecting a steroid that they know potentially could be harmful to them? It's the same reason. Mm-hmm. You fell in love with something, you love the results of it, and you can't fucking change. Mm-hmm. It's just for whatever reason you're kind of stuck in that mode. Now, again, what Rich Piana was addicted to, or allegedly addicted to, is a different story.
But that's not a drug that most people need to take every day.
Right.
There isn't a good reason for most people to take that drug more than a few days,
Correct.
And it probably should never be prescribed outside of cancer or the kind of pain that is not controlled by anything else, know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, and we already know, you should know some of the risks going in to some of these different kinds of drugs, but it gets to be kind of complicated, but basically what I think a good move to do is to think about how these guys lived and to think about the fact that they did do a lot of the things that they wanted to do. Unfortunately, Dallas McCarver died way too young. They both died way too young, but Dallas McCarver was only 26 years old. And, I wish someone would come forward and say he died because he took a shot of insulin.
Yeah.
And you guys should fucking stop it.
And stop it. Don't do it. Yeah.
Somebody should come out and say Rich Piana died from fucking Oxycontin. And this should be obliterated from, you motherfuckers that are in pain, you're better off using alternative medicine, maybe looking into something like kratom, like maybe it can help, like maybe it can be different.
And never stop moving and all those, there's a body of knowledge around pain,
mm-hmm.
and pain management has come a long way, and OxyContin is not really the answer for most people. And if you're taking it on a daily basis, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And you need to address whatever the underlying cause is.
I mean, I don't want people, doing any type of drugs all day long and not, maybe not doing some of the things that they want to do. But, it seems like there's more and more evidence that things like marijuana, there's a lot of options out there, mm-hmm. And like you said, yeah, it shouldn't just be masked, and we should find out what the root cause is. And a lot of people are too scared to get any sort of therapy, to go in and see a shrink and go talk about why they're really taking a painkiller. They felt slighted as a kid, or they were abused, or what. All these things they're gonna manifest at some point if you never dealt with them. And I think it's important that we take care of ourselves. It's important that we learn. but sometimes it's hard to learn unless someone is out there sharing information. And for me, I got some blood work done recently. I put it up on my YouTube channel. I've been getting information from Stan Efferding, who's been helping me. I also have a healthcare professional that's giving me information. I talked to Dr. Rand down in Los Angeles, and there's some markers of my health that aren't great, and I'm trying to make them better. The fastest way for them to get better is probably for me to lose more weight, and probably for me to not take steroids. But it's hard because it's definitely part of some of the at least for me, it's a justification. I'm justifying why I'm taking them. I certainly don't need them, but where I'm at now, with my current blood work is, the doctor is basically just saying that things are heading the right direction, things are getting better, and there's nothing alarming. I'm not like still fucking shooting up like I'm some sort of heroin addict when I'm not supposed to or whatever. But I am on dosages that are what do you call it? HRT, I guess you'd say, replacement therapy. And I've been preaching training every day and all these different things, and people point to steroids and it's like, okay, well, look at my blood work. My testosterone levels were in the normal range, and my they were in the natty range, and my estrogen was like double where it should be. So it's like I'm not in some heightened state that's allowing me to train every day. I'm just training every day because I fucking want to.
Well, you didn't do it really overnight either. I mean, you've been training for a very long time, and if someone wants to do something like that, training every day can mean 15 or 20 minutes. It's not,
Yeah, for me, I decided to count a half-hour walk in there. So if I'm somewhere and I don't, I'm coming off a plane or I don't feel like it or whatever the case is, if I just get in a 30-minute walk, then that counts. So I've strung together, I don't know, I'm thinking like 120 days. I'm not trying to force anybody else to do it either.
Right.
For me, it's more.
You're not saying it's the only way either.
No, not at all. For me, it's been like a mental thing. It's been something to kind of keep me going. I got off the plane on Friday and coming from Victoria, Canada. As soon as I landed, boom, came right to the gym. I didn't want to fucking work out. And he came right to the gym and did, did a squat workout and stuff. And, you're going to have to force yourself to do some things you don't want to do occasionally if you want to get results that you haven't had before. That's
For sure.
It's going to be the way that it has to go. But again, going back to these two individuals, like I said earlier, any profession, there's going to be some risk to it. The professions that they chose, there's more risk. If you're an MMA fighter, if you're a power lifter, if you're you do extreme sports, if you're a
skateboarder or BMX.
How many concussions are you going to get skateboarding or BMX?
Yeah,
right?
like a lot. So
you
often.
get fucked up.
Yeah.
Right? Even football, right? I mean, there's going to be a lot of risks that you take.
Maybe especially football.
Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of risks that you take, and I think just know what you're doing going in. It's kind of like with eating your food, just know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. Speaking of risk, relative to the fight last night, the McGregor Mayweather fight, I think that whole situation was constructed so that they were both unlikely to have major injury come out of it, and that they were both also unlikely to have major embarrassment come out of it as well. I'm not saying that it was fixed. I'm saying that the conditions were set up so that it was possible for it to be a win-win, regardless of who actually had their arm raised at the end of the fight.
Yeah, it certainly could have been, and you don't really hear the term as much, but they used to call them prize fighters. And these are prized possessions. And you shouldn't let your possessions get damaged too much. And so when McGregor was getting beat up, they called the fight, probably a little early. I realized he didn't return any shots, but if you go back and watch the tape, he moved out of the way of a few, and he was trying to get out of the way still, and he was still around. They probably should have let another shot or two go.
It wouldn't have changed the outcome, though.
Not at all. I'm all for being humane and not seeing somebody get slaughtered, but at the same time, it's supposed to be the biggest event of all time. You let it go a little bit. And I think everybody wanted to see.
But if he doesn't go down, it's not the same thing.
Yeah, you don't get the same feel from it. And he even said, like, let me go down.
Yeah.
Let me fucking get blasted and let me hit the canvas. But I think that Mayweather had a good game plan going in. He knew exactly what to do. The whole thing. I think even all the way to the point, you can see McGregor still trying to move out of the way. He is getting blasted. He's still trying.
The last 45 seconds of the fight is what we're watching.
And they had a good game plan going in. But if you think about it, all the way to the point of, hey, let's not schedule a date yet. Let's not even have a date on the calendar. And let's, when we do schedule a date, let's just have it be like 16 weeks from now. Because you can't be a boxer in 16 weeks.
Right.
And so that's kind of the stuff that they did to get this fight going. And you saw the results of it. I mean, McGregor did great.
I was intrigued by the changing stance.
Yeah.
And he came at Mayweather from some angles that you wouldn't expect in a boxing match, I guess. I'm not the biggest boxing fan in the world, but, I mean, even I could say that fight looked different to me.
Yeah, it was fun. It was exciting.
And McGregor had a difficult time fighting off the instinct to use MMA moves in the boxing ring, too. Rabbit punches and
damn, he wanted to, just tackle him.
Yeah, he did. He just wanted to take him down.
You know what? The way that McGregor fought like a real warrior. He really did. He even when he got tired, he was clearly tired. He was still trying to throw punches. He was still trying to maneuver around the punches the best he could. He was still trying to come forward. And also, he never tried anything cheap.
Yeah.
Third round, they should have probably just fucking tackled him. Just fucking shoot on him. I know. I believe there was some stuff in the contract about.
Yeah, it was like a 7-figure penalty for
couldn't do certain things or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. You get in the ring and you get hyped up. Like I would just think in my head, this guy probably hasn't been on his back. I think pick him up and just. So what? I'm gonna rough him up a little bit, but I make it look like an accident, and I'm gonna land on top of him and. I'm used to that. He's not. He's probably going to feel pretty fatigued from that. You figured he would have tried something like that, but he didn't. He fought a very honorable and courageous fight, and he did the best he could. And in the end, Mayweather, who's considered one of the greatest boxers of all time, said that McGregor surprised him and that he was a little bit better than he anticipated.
So Mayweather is 50-0, but do you really count this fight as the same kind of fight, the same level of fight as the other 49? Because I would argue that this was an exhibition more than anything else. And do exhibitions really count into your record, into your professional record? I mean, not that they didn't get paid, and that's sort of the line for being a professional, right? Is getting paid for doing it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd agree that it was an exhibition and that McGregor was heavily outmatched. And I know people were getting excited during the fight, but in no way, shape, or form was the fight close. I think that the fight was close on the scorecard because of the strategy that Mayweather took. And I do think there was a couple situations there where Mayweather got too comfortable, which is a giant mistake. You got to always respect your opponent. But man, he couldn't have been any more disrespectful. He was just flat-footed, and he was like, "You're not gonna do shit. You're not gonna do one fucking thing that I haven't seen."
Yeah.
And the problem with that can be, the crowd could get on the other guy's side, which can energize the guy. The other thing is the strategy to make someone tired. That could fail a little bit, or he could get tired a little bit later. And then the real danger is that he could clock you somewhere. But
right.
I think if you go back and watch the fight, by the third round, he's like, okay, he threw some hard shots. He's not going to throw a harder punch
than anything he's hit so far.
than anything he's done so far.
Yeah.
Those other guys know how to pace themselves really well, and Mayweather has a really interesting strategy. He did like a lot of lunging punches. You know, he puts this like snap on a punch in a really short range, and it's really amazing to watch. Amazing to watch his professionalism and what a like tactician he is. But he would kind of have a punch halfway out and almost doesn't look like it kind of land, and then he's like wham, he just slams his
snaps it in there. Yeah.
And there's not a ton of body weight behind it, because I think if he put body weight behind it, the punch would take too long and it probably wouldn't land, and maybe also potentially wouldn't be as accurate. But that was just great. It was just cool to watch. It was fun. McGregor's a genius, for getting that fight to ever happen in the first place. I think it started because Mayweather, I think, said some shit about MMA
on Conan, I think is the deal.
Long time ago. And McGregor's like, fuck him.
Yeah. Another thing, I don't know if I'm sure you probably watched all the fights, but I was highly offended by the costume that Gervonta Davis,
the big blue thing.
Yes, like he was wearing a Cookie Monster pelt into the ring. Those are the biggest shorts, biggest trunks I've ever seen in boxing ever, with the fur on the sides. And
you think it was offensive to like a lot of Cookie Monster fans?
Cookie Monster fans, yeah, absolutely. It's like he had hunted and killed a Cookie Monster and had used the pelt to make his costume.
That was weird. Yeah, the shorts were made out of. I don't understand boxing shorts.
Why
are they so out of control? They're so big.
Well, it reminded me of the big suit that David Byrne wears of Talking Heads and Stop Making Sense. The giant shoulders.
Yeah.
He just did giant shorts. I don't understand.
For some reason they all wear, like, even Mayweather's shorts were like bigger than his whole body.
Yeah,
it's weird. I
don't
get it.
Gold lame looking stuff too.
Yeah, his were bad, but that was cool. That was
it's sort of a WWE element to the costuming in this card.
Yeah, there's a huge entertainment value to it, and I don't know when we'll get an opportunity to see something like that again, because I don't think anything else matches up quite like it. I would, I'd also like to point out that I don't feel that Brock Lesnar ever got enough credit for him coming into the UFC and winning the fucking heavyweight championship. Yeah. Now, he didn't do it on his first fight, but he fought Frank Mir in his first fight, and he did outstanding. He just happened to get caught in like an ankle lock. But if for some reason that feat seems to get swept under the rug, I mean, that's unbelievable. And I understand he had the collegiate wrestling background. I understand that. But to all of a sudden, as an adult, be like, yep, I'm going into UFC, where that's the strongest, that's where the best fighters in the world are. And he came in, and what a mutant, what a freak. And he was able to actually go in there and go from professional wrestling, years and years of professional wrestling, probably a decade of professional wrestling, which has a huge toll on you. He also fought bouts of addiction and all kinds of different things, and still went. He
had an intestinal issue too.
Yeah, he had that too. Came in and got it done, and then I realize it's a different situation because McGregor is an entertainer and stuff, but I just kind of think it's just interesting how Brock didn't really get the credit I think that he deserves for that. I thought that was unbelievable to be able to come in there and fight, at such a high level.
Right.
Crazy.
He certainly had the drive. Another thing about this that makes it obviously an exhibition is when's Conor McGregor's next boxing match? Well, never, probably. Yeah. Unless he gets a rematch on this, and I don't see it happening. I don't think he earned a rematch by his performance. And he did well. He did much better than most people expected, but, I mean, he did not put on a high-level exhibition of boxing.
He didn't hurt Mayweather.
Not at all, no.
Yeah, I think what I liked about Mayweather, and I think what could be learned from him, is just putting it all on the line.
Oh,
He did a great job of that. It's unbelievable.
And, it was a Mayweather production,
Right.
too. I mean, he's had tax issues, but
Right. And also,
they were probably not in his control either, as
and also
often happens.
how awesome of both guys to make the fight work and to make it happen. And, Mayweather, I think, was touted to make $300 million and McGregor 100 or something like that.
And boxing and
UFC
made a lot of money, and they needed to be honest. And I think that there's
UFC's not. I don't think UFC's doing great.
I don't think they are either. And the biggest UFC pay-per-view is still just a fraction of the biggest boxing pay-per-view of all time. And pay-per-view revenue is declining.
Right.
I think we're probably going to see some other model emerge at some point.
Yeah.
It was the thing to do, and it was the time to do it.
Right. Maybe there's even a different strategy to these giant events. They have these giant events. I mean, I don't know how it plays out. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But it's like, July 4th, there's going to be this whatever, right? Like they always have these big, huge events. Maybe there'll be something different in the future. I mean, there's just, you can't just meet someone in an alley and fight them, but like maybe there'll be something different. Maybe there'll be a different way of viewing or watching, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But things change quickly, and there's always something new on the horizon. We were talking about Facebook and how Facebook, because of the reach of Facebook, it slaughters everything else, right? So, maybe these things are shown on Facebook. I don't know.
I was noticing on Facebook last night that a lot of people were trying to live stream off their phones to their Facebook page, or even
IG.
Yeah, and it's getting shut down over and over again.
Yeah,
because it was content ID matching.
Yeah, Facebook has that ability. Instagram kind of doesn't have the ability, even though they're owned by the same thing. Instagram hasn't
built differently.
Yeah, Instagram hasn't figured it out as much, but they'll need to do something about that. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is there, but I was what I loved about McGregor when you watched all the lead up to it is that he really has figured out a way to talk himself into things. And we have a tendency, we, meaning all of us, have a tendency to talk ourselves out of things every day and to kind of get negative and to get frumpy and to get grumpy and to allow things to pull us in different directions than we want to go. Mm-hmm. But this guy, he makes a decision and he fucking runs with it. He's going to fight the greatest boxer of all time, and he thinks he's going to win? Mm-hmm. Like, what the fuck? No, he's not going to win. But what does he do? He gets his team around him. He talks to his team every day about how he's going to win. It's going to be this fucking glorious thing. He gets the fans into it. Mm-hmm. He gets a lot of people, including myself. I thought he was going to have a really good chance because I thought that the weight difference was going to be a big deal early on, and I thought Mayweather was potentially going to get caught with something because he's older and he's a little slower. But that it didn't pan out that way. But how awesome is it that he talked himself? He had to. Yeah, everyone has self-doubt, so he had to have a lot of self-doubt. He must have known like how hard of a thing this is. But once he made a decision to fight him, he's all in. And he's going to fucking win, and he's going to talk shit. He kept talking about how small Mayweather was. He's like, Mayweather's too small. He even told Mayweather's dad, he was like, your son's too small to fight me. I'm too big. I'm too strong. At some point, that has to seep into your psyche just a little bit. And you have to start to think, fuck, man, like, I am getting older.
Yeah.
He is going to be 20 pounds heavier.
Yeah. Makes you start to question yourself a little bit.
And
he evangelized the hell out of this, out of the possibility of himself winning.
Yeah, he did it. He got a lot of people behind him to believe. I mean, you think about, the head coach for the New York Jets going on a campaign and going around the country saying, we're going to beat the fucking Patriots, and over and over and over and over again, to the point where he's saying the right things to where people are like, yeah, you guys are going to beat Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. It's like, no fucking way are you going to beat them. But you start believing, you start creating a lot of this positive energy, And look what happened. Like he won more rounds probably than anybody that's ever fought McGregor. I think he's landed more punches than anybody that's ever. Or I'm sorry, that's
Mayweather.
Mayweather. So he accomplished a lot. You know, I do think that it was Mayweather's philosophy, and he was the way he was going to fight, and
he was going to take some shots. But,
Yeah.
you know, and they were not
glancing blows.
Yeah, they were
mostly.
yeah.
A couple of them. But it was just really really cool. And then to see Mayweather, like you know what, all that's cool, but now the bell rang, and now we're gonna box. And this is what I've done my whole life, and my uncle did this his whole life, and my dad did his whole life, and we were gonna execute, and we were gonna kick the fucking shit out of you.
And then when it was over, they were both very sportsmanlike with each other in a way that kind of surprised me. I know that McGregor didn't like the fact that it was stopped, but he didn't oversell that at all. I didn't think, and they were kind to each other afterwards.
Well,
I mean,
think,
they just both made a lot of money, so that makes it easier to be kind. But they were not. There wasn't animosity there. It was. I mean, even if you listen to Mayweather say, look, I really had this thing kind of in hand the whole time, but it was still fun. He said, I enjoyed myself.
Right. Yeah, I think, that it was just really cool to see it unfold the way that it did. And it was cool just to see the professionalism of both of them. And McGregor is a genius. He really, truly is. I think someone like him only comes along, he's a once-in-a-lifetime type of person. And I think that he has – there's a lot of people that fight in the UFC. And there's a lot of people –
Whole lot.
Yeah. There's a shitload. There's thousands of people that have been through the doors of the UFC that have had contracts. And there's literally a few hundred on the roster at a time. From Jeff Nowitzki, who we've had on the podcast here, who does the anti-doping for the UFC, or however you say it.
Vice President of Athlete Performance or something like that.
Something along those lines.
Help, I don't know.
I think he told us there was over 400, almost closer to 500 athletes. Out of all those athletes, there's some people taking advantage of where they're at, and there's some people that aren't. Yeah. There's some people that are sitting there just complaining, and they're just like, fucking Dana White's a piece of shit, man. He won't give me my shot. Da-da-da-da-da. Just sit there complaining. Then there's a notorious one. There's Conor McGregor, who's learning from the Fertitta brothers, who's learning from Dana White, using those guys as mentors, and launching his own success, his own business, his own fight career into the fucking stratosphere.
In a similar way to what Uriah Faber did.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's 100%.
Uriah Faber was never as big a star as Conor McGregor is now, but he has carved himself out a very nice career and has a very nice business empire now, because he was willing to do the work, and he was willing to listen to people who had more information than he did about building business.
Yeah, and people will ask a lot of business questions. We're in a world now where there's, a shit ton of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of people that want to figure out ways to make their own money, make their own dough. And, I think, the main thing about all of it is just to fucking pay attention. You could work anywhere, and you can work for anybody, and there's always something to be learned, not even just from your actual work, but also surrounding all of it. I mean, your everyday interaction with different people, you can watch stuff and you can say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like that guy. I don't think that's smart. I don't like the way that guy conducts himself. Or, you know what? That's actually really smart. I think I can implement maybe something similar into what I'm doing, and you can adapt, right? I mean, you can learn, you can watch other people, and we can learn from them. We can rub elbows. I went out to St. Louis and met with Andy Frisella. I saw a few videos that he did, and I was like, and I watched his podcast, and I was just like, man, this guy has a lot of energy. This guy's fucking cool. I looked into him a little bit more. I knew nothing about him. Knew zero. And I'm like, oh, he owns this company, First Form. So I look up a little bit of stuff on that. And he talks about his company, and he talked about it in a very interesting way. And he said, most supplements aren't FDA approved, da 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 da. We go through that process, even though we don't have to. We choose to. We pay for it. And then on top of that, everyone we have here is NASM certified, which is the quote-unquote hardest certification that you can get in the fitness industry. So anyone that answers their phone is really educated. And they literally just sit there, talk to you about training. You can return any product you want at any time for any reason. You don't need to even explain why you want to return it. You can just say, hey, I got something I want to return. If I can give you your money back, or they'll replace it, or whatever you want to do. They make it easy for you. They give you an easy out. And so I was just like, man, this seems really cool. It seems like this guy has a cool business. I want to meet him. So I fucking flew out there and I met him. Not everybody will always have the means to maybe just up and fly somewhere or do whatever, but you don't have to. You can just follow his podcast. You can just listen to him. Find people that are executing well and doing things that you think are cool. And I'm not going to copy Andy Frisella. I'm not going to all of a sudden start a supplement company. But I learned a lot. Right when I walked through the doors, everybody was wearing a First Form shirt, and everybody was very professional, and everybody was very nice. And I was like, that's fucking cool. And the same thing I learned from going to Gary Vee. When we went to Gary Vee, I was like, I need to fucking hire more people. And when I went to Andy Frisella, I'm like, I need to hire more people. So, I'm going to hire 2 more customer service people coming up, and that's that. But, you try to learn. What are they doing? I asked him a lot about his business. His business and my business are totally different. He has like sales people. He's got sales reps all over the place. It's not the same.
They're trying to get into supplement stores, retail.
Right.
And you're primarily an internet business.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So they're different. You can still learn a lot. How does he manage these people? What is he? The other thing he told me is, like, when I got there, he was like, "Dude, I'm so sorry. I couldn't get out of this meeting. I was at a what did he call it? An exit interview."
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I don't. I'm new to all this. I don't know what the fucking exit interview is. I never had a regular job in my fucking life, and so I've never been fired. So I've never been part of an exit interview. I never heard of it." And he was like, I just give the guy, the guy already knows he's let go. Give him an opportunity to vent or whatever, but also give him an opportunity to tell us where we suck. Was there something that we really are executing really poorly on where he has a good point? Then also we tell him where he sucked, and then we go our separate ways.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's fucking great. I was like, I need to do that. That's easy to implement. Right? Somebody's things aren't working out here for somebody, just say, here's why you were let go, and if you disagree, tell me what you disagree with, because I want to make this fucking place better, and that's it. So just stuff like that. It's like there's so much room to grow, and I think Conor McGregor did that times 1,000. I saw him he posted a picture of Dana White and one of the Fertitta brothers, I forget which one, but he posted a picture with them, and he's like, these guys have been my mentors. I've learned everything from them. And I thought that was fucking cool. I'm like, there's so many other fighters in that locker room that aren't learning anything. Just getting their heads bashed in. And we see the same thing in powerlifting.
Yeah.
People that aren't really learning anything. I saw Rob, Quads Like Rob, I'm not sure how to pronounce
Philippus.
Yeah, I saw him post on his Instagram. He posted up in bold letters. He's like, no more sponsors. I don't know did you see that post?
No, I did not see that, no.
Yeah, he posted up on his Instagram. I thought it was great. He's like, I'm going to he said something like deuces on me or something, basically probably meaning that he's going to double down on himself. Concentrating on me. I don't give a fuck about your brand. I'm not going to promote it. I'm not going to fucking hashtag it or fucking talk about it, because I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to waste my time and energy talking about your bullshit. I want to just fucking lift. Fucking great.
It is a distraction. It's absolutely a distraction. If you're going to do it right, social media promotion of a brand that's sponsoring you, it's time consuming.
Yeah.
To really give the sponsor the money's worth is time consuming.
Yeah, right. And if it's something that you enjoy and you feel like you're getting something, I send people products all the time. we don't ever require anybody to do anything though. But I think a lot of these other companies, they do.
Yeah.
But even with any of that, do your own shit, man. Like, if you want to be good at something, dump all your energy into that and fucking be good at it. And don't let anything else, take up your bandwidth or pull you sideways or pull you apart from anything else.
Well, actually, an example from your own life, I would say, was back when you were sponsored by Elite FTS, and Metal Gear.
Right.
How much time did you spend trying to get their gear to work for you?
Yeah.
When your lifting style, your body type, your strength curve didn't fit well with the equipment that they had, and trying to get things altered and redesigned in such a way that it worked better for you. How much energy did you put into that, and how much of your powerlifting career, I don't want to say wasted, but I want to say was frustrated by trying to get a metal bench shirt to work for you?
Oh, I tried so many different bench shirts. It was insane. However, there was a lot of discovery that happened with that for me. So in some ways, negative flipped into a positive. But yeah, 100%. I mean, I bombed out of countless meets.
Yep.
Hurt myself. I mean, before going into one of the pro-ams, I tore something in my forearm because I was trying out different shirts.
Yep.
I couldn't even hold the bar.
Yep.
And I was able to recover enough to get to the meet, but I did poorly at the meet.
And this isn't talking shit about any particular manufacturer.
No.
It's just you and their equipment didn't mesh well.
Right. Yeah, it's a story of a sponsorship, and it's a story of, like if somebody is giving you something, there's a trade. There's a trade. I gave you that, now you give me this. That's the way it works.
Well, there is no free lunch, as they say, and like everything has a cost. And that's a good way to wrap up the whole thing, because we were talking about two guys who went in directions that ended up harming them.
Yeah, there's gonna be a price to pay.
Price to pay, for sure. It's sad. It's very. My heart goes out to their families, because they had to know that these guys were pushing the envelope, and you know how in the pit of your gut you always know that something is further from normal, further from reality than you're comfortable with.
Yeah,
and they must have experienced that before this all happened.
Yeah, and there's different ways that we lose people, and there's different degrees of sadness that happen, within it all. But for the families involved, it doesn't really change much. They're dead, like they're gone. My brother had, activities and actions, and I know you've dealt with addiction in your family as well, that fucking sucked, But it's not like he dies and I'm like, that's awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it's not good.
Yeah, he crushed us a lot of times, but at the same time, you don't want someone to fucking die. The way that these two guys went out, they're slightly different. And there are situations where a child has fucking like leukemia or something. Anytime a kid dies, it's a whole nother thing, right? It's a whole nother level. But again, it's not going to change. Like both those guys are somebody's sons, and there's going to be. It's not going to change how those people in particular, all of us would say, something happening to a kid or something that's like, quote unquote more tragic than this happening, because that guy was abusing drugs. That guy was flirting with some crazy shit. But to the families, it's going to feel the same. And just try not to be too judgmental about it. Like we should openly talk about it.
In the hopes that people will learn about it, not so that they can talk shit about it. That's
correct.
That's really the bottom line. And
I mean, if he died from taking some steroid, I'd love to know about it so that somebody else doesn't mess up, or so I don't mess up, or whatever it is.
Right. And you were filming that separate video earlier talking about Mad Dog. like there isn't a specific thing to talk about exactly how Mad Dog died, except that with Prescription Thugs, Chris was talking about something that we know that he was involved with,
Right.
that people can benefit by avoiding.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. With him, it was also accumulation. He was very abusive to his body.
Yeah.
For a long time, and he painkillers, alcohol. Alcohol, in my opinion, was the death of him, even though he didn't die from drinking alcohol. Much the same way someone drinks and they just want to die and they kill themselves through some other means. Mm-hmm. They have a couple of drinks and they blow their brains out or whatever it might be. With my brother, there was like some stuff in his blood. I think that was from a product called Dust Off, which cleans your keyboard. And so my brother was somebody that utilized steroids, and somebody would say, "Oh, you probably another guy that died from juice, another guy that died from steroids or whatever." But and I will never promote that steroids are healthy. But what they thought happened is that he huffed this stuff called Dust Off, and that it froze some shit in his lungs, and he couldn't catch another breath of air, and that was that. And I think it has some poisonous stuff to it as well, and I think he was trying to get high off it. And I think that ultimately killed him. And so when I say we don't know what he died from, like, that was part of it, but we don't know exactly. We don't know exactly what was involved. It seemed like that was involved, and they did find some of it. Mm-hmm. But then there was other doctors who were like, "Oh, there was not enough of it." And it was so on. And like,
it was inconclusive in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
it was difficult to point toward. But we know he had behaviors that were not beneficial to his living a long, healthy life.
Yeah, and I guess that's the take-home message here is like, let's try to line up more stuff that promotes us to have some longevity, some things that we can actually do, not things that are too hard. Let's not talk about doing 90 minutes of cardio every day. Let's find something that at least starts at a place that's a little bit more sustainable. A little bit of weight training we know can be healthy for you for multiple reasons. We know that some other forms of exercise, some cardiovascular training, some walking would be a good idea. We know that eating too much, period, is bad. Mm-hmm. We know that sugar can be addicting. We know that we need to make sure our bodies are hydrated. We need to make sure that we're getting sleep. You need to kind of just like take care of yourself, right? We know a lot of these things, and let's try to get 8 to 10 things that we knock out. Maybe hammer out a few of them every single day, and we try to live as healthy and as long as we can. And the things that are dangerous, we don't avoid them, because we're not going to live and not have any fucking fun if we avoid all of them. But let's enjoy those things, but let's line up more positive and more things that can help with longevity rather than doing a lot of shit that could hurt us.
There you go. That's the message. Should we put a button on this one?
I think so. We're just going to talk on the air about this because I think it's kind of cool. So before we drop out here, I think the fans will be excited to hear. But I think Jim and I think we need to just make a commitment to go 2x. 2 times per week.
All right.
I think we just need to do it. What do you think?
I think that's probably a good idea.
All right. Well, I won't officially make a commitment to definitely doing 2 times a week, but we will add episodes as much as we can here in the beginning, and there will be a time where we're functioning where we have 2 times per week.
Once we get moved, I would imagine it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah, and we're going to be moving very soon. Looks like paperwork's done. So that's clear. It's a matter of like when we get the keys, and then I got to set a date to move, and that'll be that. So it'll all happen very quickly. But I'm excited. I think it's the right time. It's the right time to increase the frequency of it. I think you and I have a good rapport when we do these by ourselves. And I love bringing in other people. I love having guests, and we're going to always continue to do that. But we'll just commit to it right here. We'll just say it's from here on out. You're going to see 2 a week. Jim and I probably have to figure out, when we drop the second episode, and there'd be like a little bit of tinkering. Jim has a few other concepts and ideas. We might do some stuff that has a different look or different feel to it. But for now,
it's a bonus content for sure.
Yeah, for now we'll do 2 PowerCasts a week. And thank you guys. Thank you guys so much to build it up to a point where we're talking about having it twice a week. This is fucking awesome. It's a lot of fun to be a part of it. When we go to trade shows and when we go to the Olympia, the Arnold, the LA Fit Expo, there's so many people that recognize us from some of the videos that we've done in the past. There's a lot of people that recognize us from the PowerCast, and people are they're so excited. Mm-hmm. Like, I listen, what they always say, and you probably heard this a lot, I was just listening to you in the car on the way here.
Yeah. That's weird too.
It's great. So I think, maybe even next week we can do one, or I don't even know when the Olympia is coming. Next week would be a good time to do one. We'll just call it the Olympia Drive. Fucking people can listen to us on their drive out to the Olympia, and we can make fun of how funny all the fucking bodybuilders look and how gross it gets with the bathrooms. We've already discussed a lot of that, and people's deodorant wearing off, and bad breath, and protein farts, and the whole thing. All collaborating together, and it will all mount into just a thing of disgustingness at the Olympia, which should be a lot of fun. And I would imagine there'll be a lot of commemorative things that happen for both Rich Piana and...
Yeah, I would imagine so, especially Piana was such a big star of the expos.
Yeah, he was a huge star. We lost some great ones. R.I.P. to both. Strength is never a weakness, and you can find me on @MarkSmellyBell on Instagram and Twitter. Multiply your hustle, multiply your muscle, and may all your shits be tapered.
Shout out to all of our sponsors, 8 Man Strong Apparel at 8manstrong.com, bodybuilding.com for all of your supplement needs, Compex USA for cutting-edge muscle stim machines. Get 28 additional % off with the code PowerCast. Reebok.com, home of the legacy lifting shoe, the official shoe of the PowerCast. Increase your bench at howmuchyoubench.net. Power, the only strength magazine available in both digital and print at thepowermagazine.com. And Precision Nutrition at get.pn/PowerCast. Check it out for a free course. I'm the Jim McD on all the social media. Follow the show on Instagram. We are at Mark Bell's PowerCast. We are also at STJimSack on Twitter. And you can find us, both the gym and the podcast, on Facebook.
2 times per week, baby.
Woo!
Later.
Okay, so we were just talking about the fact that we're going to try to go to 2 episodes a week. I don't know exactly when we're going to be fully into that. Obviously, there's 2 episodes this week, but it's going to take a little bit of time to work through how it's actually going to play out. I have some ideas about things that I want to do. I'm just about to go actually out to Super Training and record what should be the last episode in that space, because I think the gym's supposed to be moving over the weekend. So there's a lot of logistics to work out yet, but coming very soon, we will have 2 episodes a week. Most weeks probably, except not holidays, because honestly, viewership, listenership tends to fall off on the holidays, and I would hate for people to miss content because they just didn't have time because they were involved in other, like, family activities and stuff like that. So anyway, we'll be back on Wednesday with another episode of the PowerCast.